Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Boozer. I'm with CUGC HQ, and I am happy to welcome you to today's CUGC Connect. We are going to be talking with John Wallace today. He's an evangelist with Ivanti, and we're going to be finding out all about their recent acquisitions of AppSense and RES and what that means for all of you guys. Just a couple of housekeeping details for you. We will be taking questions, so if you would type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel to your right, there's a question box for you. Put those in there. We'll keep an eye on those throughout the presentation, and we may ask some during the presentation and some at the end, so just keep that in mind. If your question doesn't get answered right away, we will get to it. Also want to let you know that this is being recorded and you will receive a recording link tomorrow and an email from GoToWebinar. And with that, I would like to turn things over to John to get us started. John, I'm going to send you the screen right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Once I get that, I'll share my screen and I'll just check that you can see me.
Yep, I see it.
Awesome. Well, I want to first of all thank you for the time and the invite to come and speak to the CUGC. Always a pleasure to do Citrix related activities. I mean, I personally have been in the Citrix world. I mean, it feels like forever. Prior to working with AppSense, in fact, I was a consultant based out of the UK, and we worked with some of the earliest versions of Citrix back when we were doing terminal services. It didn't really work that well, and it took a lot of effort to get things implemented. So definitely no stranger to the Citrix world. Just to introduce myself, some may know me, some may not. My name is John Wallace. I am today an evangelist with Ivanti. I came to Ivanti through the acquisition of the AppSense business. At AppSense, I was a CTO. I spent about 15 years or so with AppSense based out of the United States. I did everything from pre-sales, professional services, all the way up to things like strategic projects, planning, roadmaps, vision, and pretty much every other role that you can do inside an organization. Was very excited when we came to Ivanti. It opened a lot of doors for us. It gave us a lot of opportunities that we couldn't necessarily do on our own, and hopefully I'll kind of go through the presentation and explain this. I'll explain this today. And then, as many know, a short while ago we acquired probably AppSense's #1 competitor, RES Software, for a number of additional reasons as well, which we'll go through in the presentation, and that just helps solidify and round off the whole portfolio and strategy and plans that we have. So I'm going to take some time this morning, probably 30, 40, 50 minutes or something like that, and take you through some slides and give you an idea of the thinking or the reasons behind these acquisitions, what it means from a product and roadmap perspective, what the functionality and features and etc. in the various offerings means going forward, and hopefully answer some questions that have been out there. I think it's fair to say that AppSense and RES were probably two of the biggest no-names in the Citrix world. Both of us have been around for a long, long time. Both of us started in early Citrix days, and for most Citrix admins or for most organizations that make use of Citrix, they've either seen, used, evaluated one or both of the technology offerings from these organizations. So from a partner perspective, from a technology perspective, both AppSense and RES are certainly no stranger to the Citrix world and the community in general. But one thing that we saw, I think both organizations saw this, is the world was changing. It was becoming unified. And what I mean by that is, for the longest time, both of these organizations had offered up benefits or solutions or tools or products, etc., on top of an existing stack. So much like Citrix if you like, came in and had technology that sat largely on top of a Microsoft stack. AppSense and RES largely sat on top of the Citrix stack. And like any good vendor, Citrix over time started consolidating some of these features at the requests of customers, whether that be performance enhancements, for example, whether that be personalization and profile management, whether this be application streaming and so forth. Citrix are very good at listening to their customer base, and the customer base were rightly coming along and saying, hey, we're purchasing these features from AppSense, or we're purchasing these features from RES. We think they should be baked into the product, or we think they should be offered from the vendor. And Citrix were taking some of these on board, and they were implementing some of these features within their product. So the Citrix world, if you like, was becoming unified. A lot of the features that we offered on top of the existing stacks were starting to make the way into the products. Now, both businesses continued to enhance their offerings, but at the same time, they also started to bridge out into other spaces. AppSense, for example, started to focus and invest in the security space and also the data management space, and RES started to focus on the identity and access management, but also the automation space as well. So both organizations started to break outside of their core offerings, and what that meant is that we both started to enter new marketplaces. We both started to enter areas that we weren't necessarily known. We were known in Citrix. It was a safe world, but once we started to go into the security space, for example, well, we weren't known there. Once we started to look at the identity and access space, well, we weren't known there. And when you start to enter not only new spaces, but spaces that were aggressively owned as well, you start to need partners. You start to need help. And this is where both organizations then started to look around the market at, hey, what strategic options are there? Is there an opportunity to partner with a bigger organization or an organization of similar size to help advance some of these areas? And this is really what drew or what prompted both organizations to look at the market and to seek out potential acquisitions or partners or strategic alliances and so forth. And that's ultimately why we ended up where we are. Ivanti has this motto, or this goal, if you like, or this saying, which is the power of unified IT. Ivanti's goal is to give a platform that bridges security, service management, and IT operations, allowing organizations to automate and secure their digital workplace. So if I take the architecture out of that, what does that mean? Well, for the longest time, and a lot of people on this call will know this, for the longest time, IT operations have dealt with problems, and to fix these problems, they've typically brought in point solutions. You have a privilege management problem, we'll bring in a privilege management tool. You have slow logons, we'll bring in a different login script technology, for example. We've got bloated profiles, we'll go ahead and find a profile management technology. And as these problems grow, or as more and more of these problems come out, what we end up with is a situation where we've got many, many tools inside an organization. Now, some of these tools are really, really good. They're not necessarily bad. I mean, there are good privilege management tools out there. There are good login script tools out there, for example. There's good profile management tools out there, and so forth. The challenge is that as we get more and more tools inside an organization, no one can be an expert of them all. No one can manage that many tools on a daily basis and be proficient. So they end up typically doing things halfway. You might write login scripts, for example, but because they're long and complex and 15 different people have had input into them, logins end up slow or delayed and things like that. You may implement profile management technology, but not take advantage of things like the isolation or the ability to drill down into individual applications. And as such, the profiles may be going to a different solution, but they're still bloated or they're still large, for example. And this goes on. Ivanti has this idea, which is one platform or one single throat to choke, if you like, basically one area where you will go and you'll manage your entire infrastructure from power on to power off. Now, there's still various things in play there. I mean, you'll still use, for example, Citrix technology to deliver applications and desktops and all of the good things that they provide. You're still going to use Microsoft for operating systems. You're still going to use the various software providers, whether that be on-prem or streamed from the cloud, for example. But there's a layer, if you like. There is a platform which is needed to manage all of those assets or manage all of that infrastructure. And that's really what Ivanti wants to provide. And that starts with understanding your landscape, what exactly exists on your network, for example. When a user makes use of those resources, are they secure? Do they have the right configurations? Do they have the right applications? And when something goes wrong and a user logs a ticket or they contact the help desk, for example, what is the process that sits behind that? How does a user take that ticket all the way through to completion, whereby they get it resolved, and however they get it resolved is actually implemented in their environment? And there's some things that sit behind all this. Automation, for example, is a big part of this. This is really where we see the next generation of things like service management coming in, whereby once a ticket is loaded or once a ticket is registered, well then we want to automate some of that workflow. And we've got the building blocks now in place in order to do that, and these acquisitions made a big part of that. So we call this slide the Ivanti DNA, and this is really this really shows how Ivanti came about. On the top, you'll see a line here that starts with Landesk. Landesk goes all the way back to like 1985, 1986, and Landesk itself had a world of change. I mean, it was owned by Intel and it wasn't owned by Intel, for example. It's had different management companies or ownerships, for example. But ultimately, this whole journey started with an organization called Landesk. Landesk at some point acquired an owner, which was a private equity organization called Thoma Bravo. And along the Landesk lifeline, if you like, they acquired a number of organizations. And there you can actually see a little colored box, and there's a key to that box on the left-hand side. And this shows you the features that they acquired over time. So, you know, their acquisition roadmap, if you like, started with touch paper, and then we have organizations like Wavelink, for example, small organization that gave them some mobile functionality, like mobile. One of the big organizations along the line was an organization called Shavlik, and Shavlik gave them some very, very strong, robust, yet simple patching functionality. They acquired an organization called Extraction just before, towards the end of this line, going ahead and acquiring AppSense. AppSense was at the time one of the biggest acquisitions that they'd actually done. Now, whilst this was happening, there was another organization or another couple of lines that were forming as well. Round about the same time, a few years after, an organization called Front Range and an organization called High Tech. And these went along their own lines as well. Front Range acquiring Enteo, High Tech acquiring PatchLink. Now, these lines ultimately came together to form an organization called Heat. Heat was owned by another private equity company called Clear Lake Capital. And shortly after the AppSense acquisition, Clear Lake Capital acquired Landesk from Thoma Bravo, merged the two organizations together, so Heat and Landesk, and then rebranded the entire thing to a business called Ivanti. And the reason for the rebrand really was because whilst the brands of Landesk and AppSense and Shavlik and Heat and Lamention and all of that, whilst they were very, very strong in their own right, they also had certain features and functionality attached to them. Landesk, for example, was very much known for things like software and asset management and discovery. Heat was known for things like service management, etc. And with AppSense and Shavlik and Extraction and all of the brands that we now had, we had a portfolio that spanned a vast array of IT. And as such, there was a need to rebrand and really come up with a new company identity, and that's where Ivanti came along. Now, as we were looking at the roadmap and the plans and the technologies that we had there became a need for, you know what, we need some automation technology. We need the ability to be able to automate some of these. We need the ability to take a ticket, for example, and automatically act upon it. That acting may be firing off something like an AppSense task or delivering a patch or something like that. So we looked at the space, and RES were out there, and as many will know, RES had a very strong offering in automation. And obviously they also did stuff the same as AppSense. They had the UWM technology in the AppSense space as well. So from a business perspective, the acquisition of RES made a lot of sense. We got some UWM functionality that we could combine with the AppSense functionality in order to strengthen that position and really deliver the only solution that is out there. That comprises of many features, but also we got to take advantage of the automation technology and functionality that they had as well. And this is really how all of this DNA came together to provide the Ivanti that we have today. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Why did we acquire AppSense in the first place? Well, we acquired AppSense, Ivanti acquired AppSense because they wanted the functionality that helped round off that entire IT service management, IT management layer that really all of this was coming together to deliver. And what AppSense gave them was the ability to manage the user layer. So things like printers, drive mappings, profile management, for example, user data through the file director technology, performance through the performance management technology as well. And then later on we acquired RES because we wanted to solidify that UWM offering. We wanted to make sure that all of the features that would have made a customer go to RES over AppSense or AppSense over RES, well, now that all exists in one place, for example, and the theory behind that is that should then become the tool of choice. But the bigger reason for the acquisition of RES was more the automation stuff, which was a very strong engine, but then also the movement into identity that the organization had done as well. So just a quick architecture slide to give you an idea of, you know, some of the things that we see inside IT. We see more users, which is obviously making IT management more difficult. We've got shadow IT there. We've got users taking their environment, making their own, installing their own software, for example, bringing their own devices in, and this is a challenge as well. We've got frequent OS updates, anywhere access, changing user expectations, etc. These are all things that you within the Citrix community are well aware of, and these are areas that we want to address. We want to try and help and alleviate challenges inside those areas. And obviously, IT itself has evolved. There's numerous areas now which are challenges or which are areas that need focus. And this comes back to what I was saying before with the whole. Need for a single platform or a platform, if you like, that can offer functionality and features and technology in various areas, and everything from mobile, desktop, service management, security, patch, AV, etc. These all come into the management of IT on a daily basis. So what does unified IT look like? Well, unified IT looks like this. In essence, we've got what we call three tenants. Operational security. So this will be things like your whitelisting, your privilege management, your patching, your updates, your platform security, your mobile management, etc. We also have our IT operations in there, and that's everything from your workspace automation. So again, mapping drives, mapping printers, configuring application settings, migrating to Office 365, for example, making sure that we can move the offline cache, migrating user data or making user data available. If the user wants to go to the cloud, then helping with that. So everything that would be a daily IT operation task that would be put into that bucket there. And then service management, and again, this is making sure that when the user logs a call or when the user makes a request, that gets through the business, and it's effective and efficient. And some of the areas that we're looking in this area, in this space as well, as things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, using some of the information that we can get from our existing customers, and using that information to make intelligent decisions. We have We have a piece of functionality called Smart Advisors, which is based on all of the information that we have. We can make suggestions to the admin or make suggestions to the business of things that they might want to do and steps that they might want to take before they necessarily come across problems and so forth. And then we wrap all of that up with things like automation, the ability to share data between all of these different buckets, if you like, and then obviously simplifying the process and making the process efficient. And there's just some examples of unified IT. So rolling out patches across an entire organization, Windows 10 migrations, for example, without user disruption. Users no longer need to call a help desk. Instead, they'll get suggestions or smart suggestions of things that they might want to do. So if 15 people within inside an organization have connected a drive, well, you can probably be sure that the 16th person needs to connect that drive as well. So there's a load of things that we can do as a result of having that platform. One of the questions, and quite rightly, is okay, so now we own the two biggest UWM vendors that existed in the Citrix space. Which one's going and which one's not? Which one is the winner and which one's the loser? And the message here is, look, there is no end of life plans. Both of these organizations were very successful organizations. They had a substantial number of customers and very good technologies. And as a business, we would be financially foolish if we put that aside and decided to end of life one of these organizations. That's not the case. So as it stands, both organizations, both products, both pieces of technology continue in their existing swim lanes. So for example, the AppSense Desktop Now technology continues. It just becomes Ivanti Desktop Now powered by AppSense. Likewise, the RES One Workspace continues. It becomes Workspace Control powered by RES. The roadmaps still continue on these products. The features continue to be enhanced. Support will continue to be there. And organizations will still have their products for a significant period of time to come. So the message is, look, keep calm, stay where you are. There are no plans to end of life any of these pieces of technology. We will continue to give new capabilities for existing customers in both of these areas. So for example, we can take the automation and identity functionality that existed with RES, and we can start to offer that now to existing AppSense customers. Likewise, the virtual desktop extender and the cloud reporting as well. And then for the RES organization, for the RES customers, for example, we can offer those organizations things like File Director, the cloud reporting, some of the extraction features and functionality, for example. So there's going to be a lot of cross functionality that is now available easier for existing customers of those different lines, if you like. And then eventually we will combine the best into the what we call the Ivanti User Workspace Management. So all of the good functionality and features, for example, that were in the Desktop Now product, and all of the good functionality and features that were in the Workspace product, we want to bring all of that together and make sure that all of those features that customers use and customers take advantage of today, well, they're represented in whatever product comes down, ultimately down the line. Now, one of the significant differences between the user workspace management and the existing product lines is things like the ability to deploy in cloud, the ability to have SaaS-based tenants, for example, so you don't necessarily need to stand up your own infrastructure, and so forth. So whilst there is a strong message of, look, both of the traditional or existing pieces of technology will continue in their own right, there is also an ongoing effort to make sure that we have a best-of-breed product which combines the features of both of them. So hopefully that helps to alleviate some concern, some worry, and gives you an idea of the plans for, again, what were two of the most known products within the Citrix space.
We've got one question in real quick, if you want to.
Sure.
So what is the timeline for moving everything to this user workspace manager? Is that sometime in 2018, I would guess?
Yeah, so that's and I'm not trying to dodge the question here. I'm happy to be very transparent. The timelines are not defined yet, and the reason they're not defined is we're still trying to figure out whether we want to go cloud first, on-prem second, or on-prem first, cloud second, etc. So there's a lot of customer interviews, customer surveys, etc. being done by that. You'll likely see the first iteration of this in 2018. I don't necessarily know it'll be feature complete, as in, it's not going to have every single AppSense feature and every single RES feature in it. But yeah, more than likely, and the goal is that you will see the first iterations of this technology within 2018.
Awesome.
So just to give you an idea of some of the market dynamics as well, that are driving some of the thoughts into this offering, if you like. We see more and more infrastructure moving to the cloud, both private and public cloud. Where the infrastructure itself is not moving to the cloud, we do see control planes moving to the cloud. So whilst you still might have things like your profile management technology on-prem, you don't necessarily want your profile data, which may well contain passwords and sensitive information. You might not want that sat in the cloud, but you might want to control it from the cloud. You might want to have your interface, your GUI, your data, your reporting, etc. All of that from the cloud as well. So we're seeing a trend, if you like, in that area. We're seeing more and more users outside of the corporate network now. So they don't necessarily sit there on the LAN, but they also don't have VPN either. I myself, I spend a lot of time on site. I don't necessarily use a VPN client. When I'm on site, I typically use email. We have some SaaS-based applications like Workday and Salesforce, but beyond that, I have no real need to connect to the corporate network. And we see a lot of this. So we're actually looking at our technology and seeing what we need to do to make it internet friendly, if you like, making sure that it's secure even outside of the network, making sure that users can leverage it without the need for VPN connections and so forth. Desktops are managed more and more like MDM now. And what I mean by that is a user will have a desktop, and some policies are applied down, but those policies are very minimal and non-invasive, if you like, and users tend to like this approach. So we need to obviously explore how does that affect the technologies that we push out. So for example, if we go and push a personalization agent out, or even a policy agent, is it going to be too invasive, or do we give the user choice, for example? So there's a lot of things that we need to consider in that world. I'll skip through some of these as well. Office 365 is probably the hottest initiative that we're seeing in the Windows ecosystem today. So we've spent a lot of effort making sure that the products in their own swim lanes, if you like, are focused on delivering Office 365 benefits. But obviously, we want to make sure that whatever products we come out with in the future also includes things like Office 365 management, control, migration, and so on. We're also seeing Windows 10. Windows 10 is now gaining momentum inside the organization. Microsoft are putting a lot of effort behind pushing this operating system. And unlike previous migrations, it's challenging. It's challenging to move a user from one operating system to another, especially when you've got personalization, user data, and all of that stuff involved as well. So there's a lot of effort around Windows 10, making sure the drivers work, making sure the products just work. And this is a lot harder than it actually seems. Even simple things like, dealing with the start menu. The start menu fundamentally changed between Windows 7 and Windows 10. And in fact, even the Windows 10 iterations that come out, the start menu just continues to change, and whereby we might be able to personalize it in one version of Windows 10, the next version of Windows 10 comes out and all of a sudden it doesn't roam. So there's a lot of effort behind just working with Windows 10 and making sure that the products they work there, and we can address the requirements of our customers. So again, I think we spoke about this before, but just to give you a rehash here. So from an Ivanti user workspace manager perspective, the three key roadmap themes are Office 365, Windows 10, and cloud. So these are the three tenets that really drive the roadmap behind not only the product that ultimately we'd like to get to, but also the individual products that are in their swim lanes today as well. So from an Office 365 perspective, things like the OneDrive for Business offering from Microsoft, we want to make it easy for organizations to leverage that. Things like cache roaming for VDI, making sure that you can actually roam your cache and successfully access your cache even if you're using VDI implementations that don't normally support that. Things like locking down Office and managing things like the Windows Store. Microsoft have got a lot of interest in making sure applications are delivered from the Microsoft Store, and there's a number of benefits around this. One is obviously security, but the second is they get revenue, and obviously that's driving a big part of this. I think we'll see more and more applications delivered from the Windows Store down the line. So obviously security around that is very important as well. Windows 10, things like ongoing updates, group policy importing, for example, migrating certain file type associations, etc. There's a whole bucket of things that that organizations are struggling with Windows 10, and things that we're actually looking at and want to deliver around. And then obviously cloud. SaaS applications are more popular than ever. We're seeing hybrid environments where some things are on-prem and some things are in the cloud. Things like just geosync, making sure that, hey, when you're in a different country, you're only syncing the things that you need and stuff like that. These seem like small tasks, but they're actually really, really difficult to address. So if I look at strategically Ivanti from an organization perspective, really Ivanti's always had the ability to assess the environment, as in figure out what's out there, deploy the operating systems, and deploy the applications. I mean, this was the wheelhouse of the likes of Landesk, for example, and this is a very mature offering and a very mature piece of technology that continues just to evolve and strengthen. And then with the likes of AppSense and RES, well, now the organization has the ability to automate the environment as well. So they can assess it and automate it. They can deploy it, but they can also manage the operating system. And they can deploy the applications, but they can also manage the applications as well now. And when I say manage the applications, you might want to push out Office, but then you need to configure Office. You might push out SAP, but then you need to configure SAP, for example. And these are where tools like the tools offered by AppSense and RES really come into the mix. And then obviously one of the other building blocks here is the ability to make the environment compliant. So in healthcare and finance, for example, there's a lot of regulation and such, and we can use our tools to make sure that those environments are compliant. And on top of deploying and managing, we can now secure the operating system, and we can now secure the applications as well. And that's everything from controlling what can be launched to also what privileges and functionality those applications can actually do. This is really what we call this unified IT. This is really what gives us the power of unified IT. And as this evolution grows, we'll obviously start to bring in things like the data layer, for example, which will then allow us to manage the OS data, manage the application data, manage the user data. We have a lot of this functionality already in things like File Director that came with the AppSense acquisition. That is going to allow us to build out this layer very, very efficiently, very effectively, and because of those technologies, it's an area that we know well. So some of the benefits of what we call unified workspace management. We can use tools like Extraction, which is a tool within the Ivanti portfolio that came with the Landesk business, which allows us really to report and create dashboards based on a vast array of data. So we can take things like our UWM offerings, Environment Manager, for example, or Workspace, and the information that those offerings can actually get. Well, Extraction can give you reporting, and Extraction can give you dashboards on that information. So we can now see all events, for example. We can see activity. We can see things like profile size and user data size and so forth. The advanced endpoint security. So this is going to allow us to give us granular whitelisting, Windows Store app control, control over things like DLL, OCX files, privilege management. We can also control things like PowerShell scripts and so on. Because of the building blocks, because we've got a number of pieces of mature technology that's come together, it gives us a very extensive and robust API layer. So for organizations that want to build a platform into their existing workflow, there's now a very extensive API layer which can be written against, and this is for everything from management and client functions and so forth. So there's a lot of benefits for organizations that just want a platform that they can integrate into their existing workflow, if you like. Again, I'll skip through some of these things like central management and cloud ready. I mean, these are obviously benefits that organizations want and benefits that you get by bringing UWM into your environment. This is an idea of just a dashboard, an extraction dashboard, for example. and one of the things that extraction does is gives you like a, think of it as a designer. So you can design these dashboards. You can basically point it at a database. You can say, hey, I want a bar chart or a pie chart. These are the colors that I want. This is the information that I want, etc. And it allows you to design these dashboards for different types of views or consumers, if you like, and present information in ways that, as organizations independent, we couldn't do this before. We never had this feature on this level of functionality. So just to round up here, some Ivanti capabilities, and again, just split across 3 different main assets, and then the fourth on the end there is supply chain. As you can see, we're now starting to build out this platform that gives us a very comprehensive layer, if you like, that organizations can bring in and start to manage all different assets or all different aspects of their world. And with that, I'll certainly say thanks for your time. I definitely, as I said at the start, I definitely appreciate the ability to come on and present to this community. I've been part of this community myself for a long, long time, so it's definitely always a privilege. I will open it up for some questions. I'm happy to answer anything that is burning or somebody needs to know. But I'd definitely like to extend my thanks to Stephanie and crew there as well.
Yeah, John, this is Patrick, and for me, one of the things was on that last slide, I didn't see any of the application environment manager type things underneath security, right? So it's like privilege management. So I know that was a big thing when I used to deploy AppSense, was for the security and then for personalization with UEM. So maybe privilege management is part of that, but I mean, that part of the product still sits, right?
Yeah. So privilege management here sits under operational security. Here you see privilege management here. And then we've also got things like the application control and so on in that layer as well. Things like your personalization now sit over here in things like environment management and profile migration. So one of the challenges, and it wasn't necessarily a challenge. I mean, it was a side effect of, I guess, being successful. Is AppSense basically had 3 very, very strong offerings. One was around things like environment management and profile management. The other was around privilege management, application security, and then we also had the performance management aspect out there as well. So when these tools came into the Ivanti portfolio, Ivanti were already looking at operational security in the sense of patching, in the sense of MDM, and so forth. So it made sense for that security functionality to go and sit underneath that bucket, if you like. It made sense. The buyer was a consistent buyer. The feature set went into the security roadmap, etc. Now that said, we're still offering the application manager functionality, for example, as part of the desktop now offering that continues. But there is definitely a push to put the application security along with things like patching and stuff like that to give a very strong operational security offering. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. And I've got two more questions for people.
Sure.
Someone that already owns Res Workspace, what's their upgrade path to get into this type of model? Because this seems like an all-you-can-eat buffet, but I'm sure you can order exactly what you want, especially if you already had Res Workspace, right? So what do those existing clients do? I've got another question that's AppSense that's kind of related too, but we'll go with Res Workspace first. So you got Res Workspace now. You want to get to this promised land. What do you got to do? $1 million, $500,000, $1 billion?
It's more like $1 billion. No, I'm kidding. So obviously, as you can imagine, all of these different bits have individual SKUs. So, if you're a Res customer, for example, and you want to buy into, I don't know, service management or some of the operational security stuff, there are SKUs. There is the ability to go and buy those individual products as well. One of the projects that's going on at the moment, and it hasn't reached its conclusion right now, so I don't necessarily have a definitive answer, is a rationalization of SKUs, for example. So someone who might have like application control, for example, who needs patching, well, then is there an upgrade path to a security offering that includes both of them? So they're still being defined as well. What we wanted to do first of all, and bear in mind, we're still early days into certainly the Res acquisition, we wanted to steady the ship and make sure that customers knew that if they're already part of that world, then their functionality is going to continue. The enhancements that were on their roadmap are going to continue. So all of the promises that were made before, they're still going to be delivered upon. But obviously, we want to bring those customers into the wider portfolio and take advantage of the other features as well. My short answer is contact your account manager. Your account manager will be able to give you an idea of how you can actually take advantage of some of the other solutions as well, and give you the paths that allow you to get there.
No, that sounds great. And then we've got another customer that has AppSense now, and what features Res have. I'm thinking about Environment Manager. So it sounds like somebody that may have already had the AppSense kind of bundle and are looking for some of the Res things. So I think that's probably the same thing. Contact your account manager / partner vendor VAR, find out.
Yeah, I would certainly be doing that.
Where you want to go to, right?
Yeah, the account manager is definitely, who you bought your product through is definitely your primary point of contact for that. There are good features in both products. Like, for example, I'm a long-time AppSense guy. I was with AppSense for a long time. I spent time in the field battling with Res, right? But as a professional, there was features in that product that I wished we'd have had in AppSense as well. There was just things that they did better, and I want to make sure that those features are represented within the AppSense product as well. And likewise, I'm sure there was features in the Res product that customers just thought AppSense did better, for example. We want to make sure that those features are represented as well. The nice thing is now, by owning both organizations, no one can sue each other on IP and content and stuff. So we can actually bring the best of features into both of those product lines and make sure that customers get what they want.
Good. All right. And then we've got another question on Res V10 in their environment. How do I plan for the next release? I remember from previous deployments of that product, it's pretty much kind of quarterly. I don't know if that's kind of held true after all the acquisitions and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. So
with minor builds, obviously.
Yeah. So I don't specifically have individual details there. This is still relatively new and still being absorbed. So I'm still learning the Res rollout plans and things like that. My answer to that, and again, I'm not trying to dodge the question, is my answer to that is speak to your account manager and they can arrange a product management discussion for you. What I will say is the dust is settling, so there will be some, there'll be some waves, if you like, or some light chop as we rationalize all of this. Obviously, Ivanti have got a defined release cycle for products, and what they try and do is they try and fit all of the technologies that they have into that release cycle, if you like, or to that cadence. So obviously that's gonna happen, but still, we recognize that there was commitments to customers. We want to honor such commitments and so forth. So yeah, my advice is to reach out to your account managers and have a product management discussion. Product managers are always happy to talk through these changes.
Cool. Yeah. So it looks like that is the last questions that I'm seeing here right now. If anybody else has any, just shoot them away, and we got a couple minutes here.
Yeah, and if there are any post the webcast as well, they can always email me. My email is jon.wallace@ivanti.com. So john.wallace@ivanti.com. I think my AppSense.com email address will still come to me as well. But no, people are always welcome to reach out to me, ping me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm always pretty transparent, so I tend not to. If I can't answer something, I'll tell you. But yeah, there's nothing really I can't let people know.
I've got a question. So as y'all get ready for Synergy, do you think some of this packaging and pricing and bundling and upgrading, because you guys have a big suite of products, you're not quite Quest, but you're there. But the good thing is a lot of your products all glue together and make sense, and especially the virtual desktop kind of world and device management. But Synergy's coming up in May. Are y'all striving to probably have some of those that information? Because a lot of user group members are probably going to be there and be able to go knock on your booth then, and hopefully you'll have some shiny new things.
Definitely. So we showed a lot of new technology at Synergy just gone this year. Obviously next year we'll have the combined product set and everything like that. So we'll definitely have a lot of technology on show. One of the things that I did this year was I actually prepped the demo machines. So one of my roles was to actually put all of the products that we have onto the machines that we actually took to the shows. And man, that was a mammoth task. But we'll do that, and we should have demos of everything, and hopefully a lot of our SKUs and packages and everything like that should all be tied down. Certainly that's the goal. The goal is to have them tied down really, really soon anyway. As you know, Citrix Synergy, AppSense and RES were known for their entertainment. Can you imagine the party we're going to have this time?
I hope you're going to have a booth that's like twice as big now, right? You had two companies funding it, now it's one, so you should be able to get a cool spot over there. And you guys have always done sponsors a lot of parties over there. So if anybody's going to Synergy, pay attention to your Citrix partner and just around the booths, because there's a lot of things always going on almost every night.
Definitely, yeah. Citrix is a massive partner for us. Always has been and continues to be. So it's a big important part of the revenue of both AppSense and RES. So obviously it's a big part of the Ivanti revenue as well. Our focus, our investment in Citrix is only going to grow. By no means is it going to shrink.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that with some of the Workspace One acquisitions, and I've always loved UEM, and I've always loved the application manager and being able to control and block things, and even publishing Notepad, and all they can do is file close. They can't print, they can't open, they can't save. All those abilities. It's on the security side for me, that those were amazing, and I can see with Workspace One, from the RES side, if you're able to tie some of that automation and reporting into things like that and some of the dashboards you've shown, you should be able to make a pretty awesome product. And I guess it's really going to come down to the per user, per device, per session, with all the different SKUs and packaging stuff that's ahead of you guys.
Yep. Yeah. So, once some of this stuff is solidified and bolted down, hopefully we can have another one of these calls and we can give people some some more detailed substance.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. I guess we can give Stephanie, I see you coming on here.
Yeah.
I guess we can give a couple minutes back to everybody, and unless you've got anything else.
Yeah, Stephanie, Patrick, thanks for the invite. This is awesome as always.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being with us today. Can you guys see my screen now? Hello?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was like, oh no, did I get lost? Just really quickly, I have a couple of quick notes for everyone. I know some of you might have signed up for a chance to win the Hubsan drone, and I want to let you know that Ivanti will select the winner after the webinar, and that will be a random selection, and we will announce the winner on Twitter. So be sure to follow us at myCUGC, and you'll know the winner. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar was recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording tomorrow. It'll be in an email from GoToWebinar, so if it goes to your spam folder, just be aware. That's where it'll come from. And finally, I put a link in the chat window to a very short anonymous survey. We love to get your feedback on all of our webinars. It helps us continue to plan future webinars and try to find the content that you guys are all interested in. So please fill that out. And I also put a link to some upcoming webinars that we have still left for 2017. We have some great user shares coming up that we're excited about, so check those out. And with that, I just want to thank you again, John. It was a great presentation. Thanks for giving us your time today. And thanks, Patrick, for keeping an eye on those questions and asking some of your own. It was a great discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Have a good one.